When Australians have something to celebrate, you'll find the function is usually hosted at where else but the pub. Today proved no exception as all things Irish were honoured, even if the revellers were a little hazy about the true meaning of the day.
I'm here to support some Irish friends and having a good day. Loving it.
Had a Ross today, so what better way to spend it?
Of course, it wouldn't be St Patrick's Day without a drop of the black stuff, appreciative drinkers honouring the Irish code with a pint or two of Guinness. Leprechauns also took centre stage throughout the festivities, as did other symbols of Irish culture. And at the end of the day, that combination to some made for a very satisfying outcome.
There is entertainment, nice people, now that you've arrived, and also a nice drop to drink. And that's about me for the day.
And that's no Blarney. Helen Kapelos, NBN News.
Nerves were obviously taking their toll on the jet black stallion about to carry every Guinness-drinking Irishman around the Scone track. Drinkers who bought more than 12 pints of the black beer were eligible to benefit from Sir Guinness prize purses.
And they get to share in all the profits from Sir Guinness this year, or hopefully donate it to charity, and our favourite charity is the Red Cross.
I think that's because they're trying to encourage people to drink Guinness, and Guinness is great for you, see? So it's not like it's a bad thing to do, it's a great thing to do, especially on a hot day.
All the fuss over Sir Guinness brought the odds right in, and the added interest didn't go unnoticed by jockey Grant Buckley.
It's great, it's a bit of pressure, but no, it's great.
But the race proved tough for Sir Guinness. Our Abraham paid $32.20 for the win, $6.30 the place. Brodre, $1.50 for second, while Cash and Glory, a massive $22.80 for third. The Quinella, $72.10 and a whopping $3,368.70 for the trifecta. And wouldn't you like a piece of that?
Having never won at Hindmarsh Stadium, Lee Sterry rolled the dice using a trio of strikers up front in a bold ploy to grab early goals, and it provided 3 early chances for the visitors. The home side got as many all at once. Somehow this didn't go in. Newcastle broke free several times but wasn't able to slide one home. Even leading club goalscorer John Bonavolia was finding it hard. But they couldn't keep out the pint-sized striker for long. The Italian flavour continued to flow, this time for the force, import Claudio Pelosi just missing. And despite further chances to both sides, it was Newcastle up 1-0 at half-time. Fighting to keep playoff hopes alive, Adelaide came out blazing after the break. It wasn't only the woodwork keeping them out, Bob Catlin had a hand on things as well. But there was nothing he could do about this. 30 degrees, 1-1 and 11 minutes left. Adelaide turned up the heat, but the match winner would come in injury time. Pelosi tapping in for a double, and the Italian was happy to say the least. Newcastle will now hope Olympic beat Marconi tomorrow to keep a grip on 4th place.
He's around, isn't he? He's always up there to...
Merryweather's Travis Lynch threw everything into the opening heat of the under-20s, ripping into the meagre surf to rack up the points. But Central Coast's Adrian Buchan must have known something the others didn't. The only surfer to ride off the point instead of the beach break. It paid dividends. It's a choice that reflects his standing as the world #1 in juniors. He won easily, while Lynch followed him through once more, this time to the quarters. For fellow Novocastrian Mitchell Ross, it was much closer. Needing a 4-point ride to sneak into second and progress in his heat, the teenager milked all he could with just seconds left, and he made it by half a point. Finals are tomorrow. The State Eventing Championships near Scone must have seemed a world away. Riding at Beltrees are a number of the country's leading horsemen and women, with many of the national elite and holding squad for the Olympics involved. Today it was jumping and dressage, while the cross-country runs tomorrow.
"11 new jumps, perfect conditions and more than 200 competitors were at Tarcowie Estate at Beltrees for the one-day eventing state championships. But if that title wasn't enough to attract the crowds, the event was also a chance for some of the top riders to prove that they have what it takes to go on to bigger and better things.
It's just like the Melbourne Cup. These horses need lead-up events, and this is a very, very good lead-up event to a three-day event.
And where better to show their talents than one of the top courses in the country?
This advanced course here at Beltrees is probably the strongest advanced course we've got in Australia.
Be that as it may, the course was still a challenge and called on both rider and horse abilities to master.
The thoroughbred horses in this particular sport come to the fore because they have really good endurance, they have a good gallop, they're brave and they jump well.
There were several divisions at the meet, but in the advanced section it was Olympic contender Shane Rose from the South Coast who took out the honours, and more than $2,000 in prize money. Adam Harper, NBN News.
In the open boat final, Nobby's got a shocking start. At the top of the screen, the Newcastle crew was belted by the swell, chasing one of two Palm Beach crews. But on the run home, they got themselves within reach of the title. The Sydney crew got the win. Swansea Belmont Ironman Adrian Tobin led early in the open board but was just beaten into second by Phil Clayton. Spare a thought for Redhead's Peter Scott. He powered away to lead for all but the final few metres in the open ski. Hitting dead water short of the line, he went from first to fourth in seconds. Better news for Lake Macquarie-based runner Angela Sheehan, who successfully defended her national mountain running title in Canberra and will now race at the Worlds. But it's her selection to run for an Australian marathon team that has her most excited.
We're going to Korea. I've never been to Korea before, and I'll be in the team with some of Australia's top runners that are looking for Olympic selection. So it's great just to run along beside them and get a bit of knowledge off them.
Angela will also defend her Malaysian Tower Stair run in May.
It was a dismal day at the office for the world's up-and-coming pro surfers. Newcastle Beach was lashed by consistent driving rain and howling onshore winds that left the ocean looking like a giant washing machine. Those to survive the deep rinse cycle included dynamic Gold Coast duo Dave Rastovich and Mick Fanning.
It is a lot of you just take anything, and if it turns up good, it's good. But it's just a big luck thing, I guess.
The Central Coast Samba man also progressed through his heat, and Lady Luck continued to smile on Travis Lynch. The 15-year-old local got a free ride in his heat after two seeded Hawaiian surfers failed to turn up. Anxious organisers spent the day scanning weather maps, but even the experts couldn't agree on what the next few days might hold.
The US models show the formation of a low just off the south coast later in the week. The other two sets of models, that's the Australian and the European, don't show anything promising at all, although we should get back to some sort of northeasterly regime over the weekend, and hopefully there could be some swell for the weekend as well.
Competition continues tomorrow when some of the higher seeds are due to make their first appearance. Bruce Mackenzie, NBN News.
A multi-purpose container terminal, a rail link between Fassifern and Hexham, and expanded traffic through Newcastle Airport. It's all part of Action Plan 2000, created by the Newcastle and Hunter Chamber of Commerce.
We're keen to look at major infrastructure programs, particularly in transport, logistics.
More people visit the Hunter than any place in the state outside Sydney, so tourism's obviously an important part of Action 2000. But that's not all.
We certainly need to improve both our freight rail and our passenger rail services. We support the government's Action 2010 proposals to do just that.
Joe Hockey, the Minister for Financial Services, digested the plan during a businessman's lunch and said the government is already supporting the initiative, but it's up to the Hunter to do the work.
We're halving capital gains tax, we're putting significant initiatives in place for venture capital, and we're giving every bit of incentive we can.
Confidence is a wonderful thing, but coach Warren Ryan is worried St George Illawarra may have enough of it back to pose a real threat after its win against the Warriors.
Going into the game, their confidence with only one win, to their credit, wasn't very high, and they are a confidence team, and I just thought that Auckland were substandard and played St George in.
Great weather for Ducks may be. It's not going to help the Knights' preparation for Friday night's game. Back in the pool, they're preparing for a limited training schedule.
You know, I know it's raining and there's no attempt at humour here, but you could nearly swim them to the game, you know. Just let them swim and do some water.
One player getting a real workout in recent weeks, Sean Rudder. The back rower cum hooker has seen much more game time in the last fortnight, filling in for Danny Badeiras. But the Saints game is one most nights love to play.
Well, they gave us a bit of touch-up last year, and a couple of times, like after they scored a try and we were walking back to the in-goal, there was a little bit of sledging and a little bit of cheap talk, but that sort of fires the boys up a little bit more.
On the injury front, Adam McDougall looks a likely starter, while medical reports on Matt Gidley indicate he too should be available. Both have been named. Steve Simpson will be given more time with an ankle problem, while Darren Albert is seeking further medical advice after X-rays revealed a slight fracture of the thumb.
I put it to him that his strike rate with tries was so good, it would be a tragedy if he was unable to play with some sort of strapping or brace on it.
Jim Callanan, NBN News.
The $67 million contract is for rail maintenance between Hexham and Gunnedah in the state's northwest. The Australian Services Union says a private company is the preferred tenderer, which says it can carry out the job with 80 workers. The union is concerned over the economic impact where rail maintenance workers live.
We will see towns like Maitland and Muswellbrook very significantly impacted on as a lot of workers in those areas responsible for the track maintenance lose their jobs.
With Hunter lines carrying both heavy and varied loads, the union is also concerned about safety.
Our view is that if you're trying to do the work with a significantly reduced number of people, as it is rumoured to be the case, that's going to have an impact on safety.
The union will lobby local politicians before the maintenance contract is announced in 3 weeks. Meanwhile, the Australian Services Union has released its estimates on the impact of the GST on rail fares to Sydney. The union claims there'll be a $2 rise for those travelling from Maitland, $1.75 extra from Newcastle and $1 extra for those travelling from Wyong for no additional service. Blake Doyle, NBN News.
Yesterday, the Williamtown-based airline confirmed plans to buy 5 Boeing 717 jets. One day on, and it looks like they could be based in a Canberra hangar. Speculation that Impulse will centralise its operations to the nation's capital came today, with the airline's decision to establish a massive maintenance facility, terminal and call centre at Canberra Airport.
We think Canberra will surpass what we do in Newcastle, and currently Newcastle is about 450 services a week.
The ACT government is offering half of the necessary $21 million needed to set up the operation, a loan which will be forgiven as long as the airline reaches a certain number of milestones.
The milestones are the establishment of an engineering and maintenance facility here in the ACT. In the future, in a couple of years' time, the establishment of a second call centre.
Impulse says the heart and soul of its company will still be in Newcastle, but admits Canberra's massive passenger base is a big draw card.
The reality is, currently through the Canberra airport, we have nearly 2 million passengers a year. Through Newcastle, they have about 250,000 passengers a year.
The airline will confirm next week where its new domestic jet service will be based. Vanessa Spark, NBN News. Darryl Green had served just 1 day in custody for the robbery of an ANZ bank in Toronto when he managed a daring escape from Newcastle Courthouse. On the 20th of July last year, the prisoner actually swapped his prison garb with regular clothes, supposed to be worn by an inmate due for release that day. The plan paid off. The dangerous armed robber back out in the community and back robbing banks. But by the end of the week, he was back in jail. Today in Newcastle District Court, defence lawyer Greg Murray claimed that by the time Green had reached 24 years of age, he had only spent 1 year of his adult life out of prison for a string of minor offences. He also submitted a psychiatric report and said his client was keen to undertake a drug rehabilitation course and education by correspondence while he was in prison. Green will be sentenced next week. Helen Kapalos, NBN News.
If rain keeps falling in the Hunter like it has for the past 48 hours, there'll be no stopping the flood waters. So far, Dungog has been the worst hit. Hook Street has been cut off under a metre of water, and the removal of buses from the depot wasn't quick enough to save this one trapped over the pits. The Williams River has burst its banks at Frank Robinson Park and threatens to do worse. Mile Creek runs into the Williams River, and it was lapping at Stephen Nevin's floorboards by midday.
This is the second time in a fortnight that this has happened. It hasn't quite reached the peak. Just another 6 inches like that and it'll reach last week's, but I sort of had all the gear up and was hoping this time it wasn't going to happen.
The SES has been preparing to meet the rising waters.
The Williams River hasn't peaked. It will peak. One peak's expected around 4 o'clock this afternoon, and there'll be further rises at that.
Well, if it reaches 7 metres, this is all going to stop flowing and it'll just rise straight up. So, well, all we can do is watch and wait.
Water is now flowing over many roads. Already it's not possible to drive between the towns of Patterson and Dungog, and livestock is at risk.
All stock, we hope that everyone's got stock off low-living areas up and away. If they haven't, they want to make some very quick moves to do that.
There is a major flood warning for the Patterson River, and the Hunter is not expected to reach its peak until tomorrow morning. David McElwain, NBN News.
Newcastle's young drivers are no worse than their national counterparts. According to statistics issued by insurance giant AAMI, drivers aged between 16 and 24 account for 22% of all at-fault accidents. Young motorists accounted for 1 in 3 nose-to-tail smashes. 24% of crashes happened because they failed to give way.
Inattention is a big factor in all accidents, particularly the minor accidents.
The state government is hoping a new graduated licensing system for young drivers will help slash the figures. It's finally being implemented 15 years after it was first floated.
Better late than never, and hopefully we will see the benefits to the rest of the community, including young drivers, with the implementation of this scheme.
From July, those applying for a licence will have to pass 3 main licensing stages over 3.5 years.
I suspect young people will embrace it if they understand the true reason why it's put in place, and they'll come out better drivers at the other end.
movie camera in those days was a rarity, and for people to see themselves on screen doing their funny little bits, just waving their hands and so forth, they thought it was terrific. They loved it.
Joe Lawton bought his first movie camera in 1939, a time when a roll of film cost a week's wages. He spent his spare time capturing the spirit of Newcastle in the years before and after the Second World War, screening his short films at his house on the weekends.
It got that popular, I had to go from the lounge room to the garage outside. Even then, the garage was packed of a Sunday night just to see my latest film.
The self-taught filmmaker developed an eye for capturing the spirit of his hometown. Countless trophies are a testament to his talent, and Joe's not shy about giving his own films a 5-star rating.
I like going to movies, but I like my own best. I'd rather stop and watch my own. I think they're better.
Newcastle's Regional Museum will screen one of Joe's earliest films made in 1946 this Sunday afternoon. Vanessa Spark, NBN News.
Health professionals, GPs and clinicians will have until June to put their bids in for the $57.6 million in recurrent funding allocated to the Hunter. All they have to do is ask.
But most of the money isn't particularly tied, and so we want to involve as many people as possible as helping us make the decisions about where to spend the money. So we're writing out now to our clinical units to ask for their ideas.
And guaranteed funding for the next 3 years means Hunter Health has greater certainty in planning new and current services.
To be able to plan 3 years ahead knowing what we've got is really unheard of. It's a wonderful development, and it means that we can really put some consistency into planning, some growth.
Meanwhile, the Hunter Area Pathology Service has been awarded a prize in the federal government's Technology Productivity Awards. The department's electronic blood release system is a computer software system which matches up blood stocks to patients.
And there's major interest worldwide now because most countries have not been prepared to take that step to use computer technology for this sort of clinical patient decision making.
Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
"29-year-old Luke Boyd and 21-year-old Clint Bentley may be the picture of health today, but yesterday in rough surf it was a different story. Both were out surfing with some friends just off Yakabar when a run-out tide swept the two of them out to sea. Luckily enough, the two managed to guide themselves over to Boondalabar Island, 3 kilometres off the mainland.
More physically draining and mentally than anything, I guess.
As luck would have it, the island they landed on had a National Parks and Wildlife tent with fresh supplies and warm blankets at the top, which kept them in good health while they were stranded. But the two weary surfers had to scale a 40-metre cliff before reaching the tent, which meant they had to leave behind their only means of getting off the island. They were on the island for little over an hour when the Westpac rescue helicopter arrived, having been alerted by some friends on shore. But the ordeal hasn't deterred the two from surfing. It's just given them time to rest up.
Yeah, it'll probably be a while till I get in there, but yeah, I don't know, I'll have to be a couple of days anyway.
Adam Harper, NBN News.
It's a decision that many thought could have been made today, but Soccer Australia won't call it until 10:30 tomorrow morning.
Just prior to Canberra leaving to come up here and play the game, so we have to adhere to their restrictions and wait until then.
More rain is expected over the next 24 hours, and if the match is called off, Sunday could be an option.
They've expressed that they'd like to play the game on Sunday then, which will be kick-off time around 6 o'clock. But then again, it'll be determined by a pitch inspection Sunday morning, and we'll go from there.
The most likely scenario is a midweek match, possibly Tuesday. However, the Breakers squad will still be guests at the Newcastle Knights game against St George Illawarra tonight and will be presented to the crowd.
Busy roads and wet conditions couldn't stop 39-year-old Mark Griffin from running to Newcastle from the Central Coast today. And he's not even doing it for fame or fortune.
All for the Asthma Foundation, all for people on the Central Coast and Newcastle and the Hunter. There's a lot of people, my son 3-year-old, he's got asthma and that, and I know a lot of people on the coast that got asthma, and I thought, why not do a worthwhile cause?
While it may be a worthwhile cause, it was by no means an easy task. Mark had to start at 6 a.m. this morning from Mingara, but thankfully found plenty of support along the way.
People coming along the Pacific Highway, we've thrown us all donations in the buckets and that, because so far we've got over $100 in donations.
And while he may be a seasoned long-distance runner, this is his biggest venture yet. Even so, Mark knew he was up to the task.
Oh mate, I can't believe how I'm feeling really good. Didn't expect to feel this good, but I feel great, honestly.
He finished a short time ago at the Newcastle Council Chambers, having almost raised the $5,000 he had hoped for. He'll set off on the return leg of his marathon fundraiser tomorrow. Adam Harper, NBN News.
The mood was very good. There was quite a few spoke against it, quite a few spoke for it.
The Hunter Valley Original Fine Food, Art and Craft Market is a mouthful to pronounce, but fortunately for organisers, its selling point was mouthfuls of another kind. From fruit to fudge, cheese to wine, culinary and artistic delights were everywhere.
We know that there's a lot of great product coming out of Newcastle, the Hunter Valley and regional New South Wales and Australia, and we think we should be able to showcase it under the one roof.
The public's response was so positive it took stall holders by surprise. Some were forced to pack up by midday because they were out of stock.
This is on the big side. This is big. This is big as Sydney, and I think it'll continue to grow because everyone was dead keen to get this sort of produce.
Others were equally happy.
Fantastic, absolutely fantastic. Yeah, we weren't sure what was going to happen today, but it's been very successful.
In fact, it was so successful the usually vacant old boiler shop shed will soon have a semi-permanent resident, with the fair set to become a regular event.
The last Sunday of every month, people to put that into their agenda, and any sort of people that like food, wines or arts or even just a nice day out.
Colin Baldwin, NBN News.